Seaopolis Submerged is a unique mod pack that forces you to survive almost completely underwater. It's one of the most fun concepts to me, especially as someone that absolutely adores Subnautica. I hosted it on my private server, MSMP, which I do playthroughs on, and if you like 100 days style content, I have a whole playlist dedicated to that just for you. But I spent a month in this mod pack, and I have a lot of thoughts. Performance-wise, the pack does okay. That's expected though. Frankly, if your pack is an ocean world or a skyblock with minimal modded structure gen and it performs poorly, then you're doing something really wrong. I was able to run it with shaders on high settings with minimal issues. I will say the pack has Tom's simple storage and pipes, and when I combine those, well, I brought the server to its knees. So if you steer clear of combining those, then you should be fine server side as well. I was trying to set up a big auto crafting and auto smelting system, and that's the context for the footage here. Bottom line, the performance was passable. I didn't notice any issues outside of that, and that's more of a mod issue and not a mod pack issue. Simply put, Tom's simple storage is horrible for TPS. And it's also not the only storage management mod, it's just the most simple one, and I really didn't feel like getting into AE2, so. As for the progression, I really adored the early game of this mod pack. You're completely underwater in this weird blue room surrounded by this glowing glass. There's also this beautifully done quest book that will guide you along your journey in a way that feels genuinely natural. All of the things I could think of that may have been super annoying in the beginning had new systems in place or some sort of solution to prevent it from becoming an issue. You can't go in the water or up to the surface just yet, as doing so will cause you to take damage and eventually die. So then, what is the method you use to gather resources? Well, that's where we have a whole new system, the strainers. By mixing specific meshes, strainer types, and fluids, you can get different outputs. Given that no ores spawn in any of the dimensions either, you see why this becomes important. Building underwater was something I really wasn't looking forward to, but I found the pack has a new system for this as well. These key blocks allow you to generate rooms and corridors of varying sizes, which also clear out the water source blocks and thus avoid issues with having to drain a bunch out. I can imagine that would get really annoying really quickly, especially with such limited resources already. The early game of this mod pack is very well done and was very clearly playtested and playtested well. Once you get more to the mid game, that's when we get into mods I don't really like, but I'll try to save my opinions for more toward the end of the video like we normally do. Anyway, mid game for this pack takes place largely with thermal series and mystical agriculture, and instead of making another portal, we have stackable dimensions, which makes sense since you have to go to the bottom of the world for other reasons related to progression anyway. Once you get through the bedrock, you jump through to get to the nether, and you need to go here to get some resources for your strainers. Ores don't spawn here either. You also have access to a summoning block, which lets you summon most of the mobs in the game that have any sort of useful drops, given you have the certain materials required to do so. It's a little hard to talk through progression for me, because this pack forced me out of my comfort zone by a lot. I really don't care for magic and tech mods, and I'll get into why soon, but this pack goes really into thermal series and mystical agriculture. For the mid game, I was pretty much just moving things from machine to machine and automating materials as much as I could. If you're unfamiliar with thermal series, this may take you a second to get the hang of, but I got it down quickly enough. I'm actually super proud of myself for getting things to the state I did when I was working on playing through the pack, and for sticking it out instead of just using the machines and things that other players had built. I called it quits after I got to Awakened Supremium Armor and killed the Ender Dragon, and that's because this endgame crafting is just criminal. But you know what else is criminal? How many of you aren't subscribed? Banger ad transition, I know. Consider subscribing and leaving a comment for the algorithm, or if you have a pack you want to see me review. I have a whole Trello board where I list off packs that are on my radar and where I list off packs that I really want to look at. I'll link it below. I also have a Discord, a Twitch, and I just made a brand new Ko-Fi where you can support me directly and get access to some exclusive perks, including seeing these videos early. While we're here, I'm just gonna throw all the stuff that I've been working on that's like ad related at you. You can feel free to skip to this timestamp if you don't want to hear it. If you need a server, I have a link below that'll take you to Bisect Hosting where you can use my code Cosmo for 25% off. And I have a merch store I just launched. My samples aren't here yet, but I've gotten some stuff from this manufacturer before, and I really liked it. I wouldn't talk about it until I had the samples otherwise. It'll be available in the shelf under this video. I'm super excited to do this because I'm an artist and I not only handmade the font used here and in all of my videos, but I also hand drew this little alien Cyclops design, and I made it up as a clothing brand when I was super into writing and world building, and I have a couple other designs like it that I really want on shirts myself, so I figured I might as well just make them public. Especially because I'm a college student and I live with my parents and I want to move out. So there you go. Add over, back to the video. Now let's ease into more of an opinionated section, which ironically is the majority of my script, which that's not normally how this works out, but it's fine. The mid-game of this mod pack is not great. It's quite literally just moving things from machine to machine, and I found it incredibly tedious and boring. I was really annoyed at the pack at that point because I loved the early game so much. That being said, it doesn't even come close to how bad the end of this pack is. The amount of items added to this pack purely to extend crafting is insane. If you have an item and its only use is to make another item, then you don't need need that item. I was hesitant to voice this as much as I am because I know I'm not really the target audience for this pack, but I played it with my friend Butter, who loves Skyblock and packs like this, and packs that have the mods that we have here, and these are the messages I got from him about the pack when he finished it. To me, it feels like the dev either gave up or got burned out, which I find super sad because the beginning was amazing. The quest book was still very well designed, and I don't think I would have gotten that far without it, especially as a player unfamiliar with thermal series. But I will say, how on earth did you forget to mention the aqua water gatherer thing? I don't know, I'll put the name on screen because I can't remember it for the life of me. But without this, a lot of the machines in the pack won't function, and I think it's crazy that this was left out of the quest book. One of my friends had to tell me about it because I was really lost. Personally, I think thermal series was one of the worst mods to pick for this pack. This is the first time I found myself genuinely thinking Create would have been a better pick for a mod pack, given it was customized a bit to fit it. It would eliminate this moving item from magic box to other magic box thing that I was experiencing. I also think this pack needs to tweak or remove some of the custom blocks it adds, mainly the autocrafter. There's another autocrafter called a sequential fabricator from a different mod that does the exact same thing, and the only difference with the autocrafter is that it needs no power and it's slightly slower. The only benefit to the fabricator is somewhat better speed and extra inventory slots, but at the big downside of it requiring power. Also, the base storage drawers were disabled in this pack, but the upgrades weren't, and I couldn't use the upgrades on the ones that were enabled, which I don't understand why the upgrades weren't disabled at that point. I was mildly pissed about it, but it's whatever. It's also kind of insane that the best inventory solution for someone using toms is to use netherite backpacks with max stack upgrades as a result. I honestly don't understand this. Now, the eyes. To make the eyes, you need a bunch of random stuff you have to use this stupid expanded crafting table for. To make the expanded crafting table, you need black iron, and to get that, you need this ingot from this extra dimension that the pack has. The dimension is post-nether, and well, to be blunt, looks like a kindergarten art room. You have to go here for a specific ore that only generates in these weird little temples. My friend Butter thought it wasn't renewable, but that's because he went a bit of a different route and didn't wind up doing upgrades with the strainers. With a maxed out strainer, you can get some crazy buffs, which include a chance to get extra output and also not lose your input, hence making this material renewable since you can craft the raw version of it if you make the outputted ingot into nuggets and use 4 of the nuggets to remake it. Speaking of the strainer upgrades, I found a pretty crazy exploit to get a bunch of them without expending so many resources. I'll let past Cosmo demonstrate. Okay, so this is the exploit basically to get these everlasting upgrade things. You shove, okay, so first the pipe can't be like that, right? Okay, the pipe has to be like this. And then you put these 4 in here like this, and you make sure this is on. And since it's on, you do this, and then it processes like it crafted it, but all the ingredients are in here. So I wonder how many recipes this works for. So this doesn't seem to work with anything but these specific items after I tested it a bit more, but it's still massive since it means you'll get a hell of a lot more out of your strainers. I also think it's kind of insane how the summoner works. I completely understand why, given the insanity of the late game recipes, but the fact that I was struggling for soul sand more than I was wither skeleton skulls is so goofy to me. The curio that guarantees a skull drop from them is great, but yeah, looting completely breaks it, because once you have looting, you can just infinitely summon most mobs. And if you get lucky, like some of my friends did while exploring, you can find enough emeralds to summon a villager and circumvent most of this pack's progression in the first place. I didn't unlock villagers until I was meant to because I wanted to play through the pack's actual progression, but I had access to them and I could have completely broken the pack early game. I was also super disappointed by the shrines. So to progress further in this pack and to get to the eye crafting sequences, you have to find these shrines and use different keys to turn them into air, water, earth, and fire shrines. So you have to find 4 total. I desperately wish this was a mini boss kind of thing because that was my first thought when I saw a shrine key. It reminded me of the keys used in the Lycanites mod, and I was excited to see what it offered. I was very disappointed to find out it was some random floating island structure that's only purpose was to give you 1 block once you clicked on it. This is not engaging at all and is a poor implementation of an exploration bit to the progression in my opinion. That's mostly everything I have as far as like gripes with the mod pack. As for things I want to point out as positives, because I did like a lot of things about this pack, I want to start with how much I loved the early game of this pack, and I can't stress that enough. It is so much fun, and it really drives home a lot of unique and innovative systems that were made specially for it. I wish this amount of love had carried over into the rest of the pack, and I'm rather sad it really doesn't seem like it did. The duck redeem that you get early game in the quest book is so silly, and I loved that we had so many random ducks running around after a certain point. It was really funny, and it really contributed to like having more fun in the multiplayer setting as well. The spray paints are also an amazing solution on top of the room system. I wish you could combine them with a key to pre-paint the room that's being put down, but this was still an amazing solution, instead of forcing players to break and replace blocks if they want to change the colors. The different apples you can get, because you can also like color trees and planks, it helps a lot with the food mod that lets you gain hearts by eating more foods, and the fish also do the same. I think including a redstone clock as a block was also a brilliant idea, especially since the player won't have access to the resources needed to make an actual one at the time. And despite me really disliking the endgame, the quest book through the entirety of it is really well done. Normally I find quest books to be a bit overbearing, but it was pretty much entirely optional and only served to be there as a guide, and oh boy did I need the guide for this pack. I also want to say, as like my last positive thing that I wanted to talk about, I really love the addition of some of the custom blocks that have been added, like the block placer and breaker thing. I really appreciate being in the pack, especially because of how the ores work. In order to get ores, you get like ore pieces from your strainers, and then you have to craft them into a gravel version of that ore and then break that to get the resulting raw ingot or whatever. And I really love that you have access to a breaker and a placer. I wish they had required some sort of like low amount of power, not necessarily the stuff that you deal with later game in this pack, but maybe just something, because otherwise it really feels like a magic box solution. Overall, I was pretty disappointed in how this pack turned out, but I see a lot of potential to be better and a lot of care put into it, especially in the beginning. I also thought this pack might be great for people that enjoy old style tech mods, which is actually a huge chunk of the modded Minecraft community, despite everything I say. And I think that's something that's super important to keep in mind whenever we look at things critically. Sometimes we aren't the target audience, and that's completely valid. This is just my opinion and view of the pack, but someone else might really love it in the state it's in, despite all the things that I see as flaws. It's something I try to keep in mind in my reviews, and it's something I touched on a little bit when I talked about Better Than Adventure, because I'm definitely not the target for that mod, but I understand the quality, care, and time and amount of love that was put into it. Sometimes it goes a long way to try to be a bit more understanding. Thank you for watching. If you liked this review, I have a whole playlist dedicated to them. Big thank you to all of my supporters whose names are on screen now, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye!